off and stay seated during those. Now, would you enthusiastically help me welcome our first speaker, Mike?
My name's Mike French. I'm an alcoholic. My story starts in Phoenix. I was born in Sunny Slope. Shout out. So I grew up. I was a straight A student, principal's list, perfect attendance. Everything was all good academically. Meanwhile, at home, I had drinker and drugger parents fighting. Alcoholism doesn't run in my family. It stumbles and falls at tables, knocks over Christmas trees. I've been through a lot. Watched my stepfather knock my mom's teeth out of her face. My father left when I was 2 years old. I didn't really have guidance. I didn't really have direction. I hung out with the drunks and the drug addicts. And, when I was 15 years old, I found some drugs under my mother's bed, and I was off from the races. First time I had a drink, my story jumps back and forth, kind of like a Tarantino film, but if you stick with me, it'll make sense in the end. When I was 12 years old, I had my first drink of alcohol, and it was me and my friend James and my brother sitting in my backyard drinking Mickey's. We had 340s, and we were passing them around. I had this pain in the back of my neck, and I haven't heard anyone else describe that feeling. But then I read in the book something about spinal fluids. I don't know what that has to do with it. My neck hurt. But anyways, I drank and I did drugs and I was 26 years old. I found myself in a halfway house in Phoenix. Some of you might have heard of it. It was called Crossroads, the West Campus. And, I was going to jail, and I was tired of eating out of garbage cans and going to jail. Oh, yeah, I remember. I tried to move into my mom's boyfriend's house, and he said to me, "No, I'm going to take you to this place where there's meetings. I'm not allowed in any stores. I'm not allowed anywhere. I'm ripping people off. I'm stealing from stores." So I go to this place. He takes me. It's called You Can Too. It was on 35th and Glendale. They had a sign on the wall said, "Welcome home." They had a pool table, a jukebox, a little snack bar. I'm like, I'm going to start hanging out here. I was watching Bonanza one day, and I fell asleep, and this girl knocks on the counter and says, "I'm sorry, but you can't sleep here." I said, "Okay." I had my little food stamp card. I went to Food City. I went and got a can of raviolis, and I'm eating it with a plastic fork. I go back, and she goes, "You should go to the Maverick House." I'm like, "What's the Maverick House?" What I heard is food and a place to sleep for 30 days. So I had to go to this intake, and there's this lady in there. She says, "Yeah, come back tomorrow. You're 30 minutes late." I said, "All right, I'll see you bright and early because I'll be sleeping outside." So we started talking. She said, "We'll see if we can get you in today. It's a little easier for the men to get in here." That was December 16th, 2011. And they were saying in there, "Come up with a plan. When you get out of here, where are you going to go?" I had a plan already. My plan was, as soon as I got money on I had a traumatic brain injury. It jumps back. When I was 21 years old, I was jaywalking in Glendale, and I was hit by a truck. I was under the influence of some substances, and so I had a brain injury. I had to learn to walk, talk again. I had a trach. So I've been on disability since I was 22, And I remember thinking, okay, when I get money, I am going to leave and I'm going to go hit the streets and do what I do. But I ended up staying. I felt like God was guiding me to Crossroads. The last outside meeting we went to was at Crossroads. I'm like, this is where I'm going. So I go there January 13th, 2012. I got out and I went there. It was Friday the 13th. I go, this guy says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, man, God sent me here." He goes, "Really?" Because if God sent you here, all our beds are filled up. But if God sent you here, we'll put you on the couch. I'll tell you what, we got a little area out back with this big old tree. You go pray and let me know what happens. So I go out back, and the clouds didn't part. I didn't hear trumpets. I just had my own thoughts. Said, stay here. So I go back in. I stayed there, and I lived there for about 11 months. I got my own apartment. I drank the day after I got 8 months. I didn't tell anyone. I was in a relationship, blah, blah, blah. Didn't talk to anyone about it, and I ended up drinking. Then I'm coming up on a year. My brother stays the night at my house, and him and his girl were there, and they had some marijuana. And I'm like, I don't want to smoke any. Let me roll a joint up. So I rolled some, and I kept some in my hand without him seeing. And then I ate it when he wasn't looking. He fell asleep. I wanted to go to sleep, so I dug in his pockets, took some more, and I ate that. Woke up the next day, and I was gone. I was freaking out. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. I used to volunteer in the kitchen at Crossroads, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I know what I'll do. I'll just do nothing. And I sat down watching Judge Joe Brown, and I started cracking up laughing. Well, anyways, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I met this woman. The end. No, I'm just kidding. That didn't work. I ended up meeting this other woman in 2014, and we've been together since. We ended up buying a house in Sunny Slope, 2015. 2017, I stopped going to AA. I became an activist. I found another cause, and I couldn't. I hated the world. I hated everybody. I wanted people to do what I wanted them to do. They weren't doing it, and I found myself alone. I pushed all my friends away, my family, and the only one that stayed with me was my lady. And so I stopped going to meetings, and I was angry for 4 years. I was an activist. I used to do activism in Phoenix and Tucson, and So then fast forward a little more, we moved up here. We sold our house, moved up to Prescott Valley, 2021, and I have rage, untreated. Now I see it's untreated alcoholism. I'm blowing up. And my lady was like, well, we bought a fixer-upper house, and we paid her mom to do the floors, and I'm good at demo, but that's about it. So we were tearing the floors out. She asked me to help her do something, and I had a brain injury. Screamed at her in front of her mom, embarrassed her. She says, I can't take this anymore. I got scared. I'm like, okay, I promise I'll go to therapy. I'll go to AA. Just give me another chance. So I started going to therapy. My therapist asked me if I was doing drugs. I said no. Lying, I wanted to give my lady a break from my rage. So I started going to meetings. I got this home group. It's called the Thursday Night Prescott Valley Men's Book Study. It's still my home group. I heard this guy talking about step one. We were reading it out the 12 and 12. He says, look how many times it says acceptance and admission on this one page. And so I don't know. Then I hear this other guy talking about he picked up a 9-month chip after drinking 2 beers. I had a 9-year chip in my pocket, and I was loaded. I like to say it was like this guy turned into a mirror, and just I saw myself lying, full of crap. And I went home, went to sleep, woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was cold and it was dark, and I had this flash of my own thoughts, I knew I was going to get honest. I can't lie anymore. But I knew, don't tell my lady yet. Talk to your sponsor first. My sponsor was coming to get me the next day. So I told my sponsor. I had a pen and paper. I was ready. I thought I was jumping on the 4th step. He says, no, we are going to step 1. I'm like, okay. He says, write down your sobriety date. I put October 27th, 2018. That was the last time I drank, but I was still doing other things. So eventually, he took me through the steps in the book, and there were some things that I did that I was never going to tell anyone. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but I was going to take them to the grave. I never thought I was going to tell anyone. Well, I didn't want to die anymore, and I knew that the only way I was going to not die was to get honest and to be honest, and I've taken the steps with my sponsor. He took me through the book. My life is changing more and more every day. I have a home group. I have a service commitment. A few of them started a big book study in Prescott Valley. It's actually Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock. It's called Prescott Valley Pathfinders. I have the keys to 2 churches. I have a job. I haven't had a job in 16 years. I was afraid to get a job, and my life is just getting better and better. My family's talking to me. I've got a great house, got a great girl, got dogs, cats. I love my life, and I'll tell you, it all fits in a bottle, pipe, whatever. I could lose it all like that. I have a pretty good routine. I've got a pretty good routine of getting grounded in the power every morning. Page 86 through the rest of that chapter. I have 4 other books that I read. I get on my knees. I meditate not on my knees, meditate for 10 minutes, but I meditate for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. I don't like to waste paper, so I have this whiteboard and I have questions on it. Was I resentful? Was I dishonest? Was I afraid? Do I owe an apology? And I do this inventory every night, and my life is great, and I owe it all to AA, my sponsor, and y'all, and thank you. I'll pass.
Thank you, Michael. Sadly, I hope your big book study fails, so you'll join our group on Wednesday. Okay, please help me welcome our next speaker, who is Joe. Come on up, Joe.
My name's Joe. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 11/26/21. I have a sponsor, Mike Bennett, of course. Without giving him his due credit, he'd probably feel left out and disappointed. Actually, I have 2 sponsors. My beautiful wife, Sierra. She likes to tell me what to do as well. Actually, she has 7 years. I should probably listen to her more. I would like to thank my side chick, Curtis, for asking me to speak. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I'll start just much like my story. I was born in 1981. My mother and father got divorced when I was 9 months old. And my dad was abusive and a philanderer. That's why my mom divorced him. And so I think growing up that there was automatically an immediate sense of an abandonment or probably not being good enough, you know, just, why wasn't I good enough for him to stick around or something like that? And I think that, stayed with me throughout my life, just not being good enough, not fitting in, and again, that sense of abandonment. But, that being said, being raised by a single mother is my brother and I. My brother is definitely one of us, not to take his inventory, but he just hasn't found a solution yet. But we never went without. We were taught morals, work ethics, you know, everything that you should be taught as a human, just to be a decent human being is what we were raised as. And that's not what I turned out to be, despite my mother's best efforts. I had a pretty normal childhood, you know, I mean, in terms of going to school, sports, all of that sort of thing, you know. And I took my first drink probably as a little kid when I would visit my dad, you know, having a beer. He'd let us take a sip or something like that, nothing too crazy. But I think it was around middle school or the first part of high school that I started to drink occasionally, you know. And then I had an older brother, and a lot of our friends had older brothers, so we could get booze quite easily. And so it was just a weekend thing, and I think I drank for the effect, you know, I mean, to fit in, to be part of. You know, I automatically, by drinking or partaking in other things, I immediately got funnier. You know, I immediately got better looking. I was a better dancer, you know, that sort of thing. And so there was just a feeling that it gave me. And it wasn't all that bad, you know. So I mean, I grew up going to high school, drinking after football games or on the weekends or at the river. I lived in Bullhead City, which is like the meth capital of the world. You know, I mean, so I do have outside issues for you purists, Mike Bennett. I will make you could talk to your sponsor, but no, it was just like a weekend thing or just partake here and there, you know, and it was fun. It was exciting. We never suffered any real repercussions because of what we were doing. And my mom kind of chalked it up as kids being kids, you know. Thank God she's not here, but she was definitely an enabler to a degree until I burnt that bridge down completely, and, you know, and I'll get to that. But, you know, I mean, we occasionally smoke weed and stuff like that. I tried methamphetamines for the first time in high school, but it wasn't really my gig. My mom remarried when I was in high school to a healthcare provider, and he got me a job at a pharmacy. And so that's kind of thing where things took a divergent turn. I love opiates. I love heroin. I know that there's people in this room that can relate to that. It helped me just not feel anything, you know? I mean, it would just help me not feel. And that was a great feeling. So I worked in a pharmacy for a few years after high school and was going to college and writing prescriptions for myself via my stepdad's script pads and stuff like that, and just doing some really scumbag things. But again, I didn't suffer any real repercussions because of it until I got pulled over with 500 narcotic pills on me. And I immediately went from not really being in trouble and suffering no real repercussions to having to call my mom from jail. Because imagine how big of a badass I was when I got to jail and was crying, calling my mom, because this was the first time I'd been incarcerated in 2004. And I caught 6 felony charges just because of the quantity I had on me. And they slapped for sale behind everything just because of that. And my mom wrote a cashier's check for a lawyer. I was OR'd the next day. And immediately my lawyers, $7,500 got him about a half hour's worth of work, and I got into what was called drug court at the time. And so I went through drug court, trying to manipulate the system, thinking I was smarter than the system, thinking I could finesse the system. Until I couldn't, you know. I tried the whole little Seinfeld thing, you know. I tested positive for opiates because I ate a poppy seed bagel, and that's such shit, you know. Like, the judge found it quite amusing and then threw me in jail. I mean, so, it was, you know, I mean, but I ended up completing it, and walked away with a DUI, so no felonious record or anything like that, which was, quite a magical little work that my lawyer did. And I continued to go to school. Just because I didn't want to get a real job, kind of, you know? I mean, so as long as I stayed in college, I could keep working my ways to not get a real job and have to face reality. So, well, when I did graduate drug court, the day I got off, I met a guy who was also graduated, who was from drug court previously, who was skiing in Beaver Creek, Colorado. I picked up an 8-ball of cocaine and some marijuana and just immediately went back off to the races. There was no one to drug test me, there was no one to answer to, and so I was just back at it. Because again, walking away with a misdemeanor DUI, I felt I was untouchable. And this is how I lived my life for a long while. I continued to go to school. My brother, who's one of the smartest people I know, went the other route, never spent a day of college in his life, but was an HVAC contractor and was making money, you know, I mean, doing his thing. And so, but really early on in high school, I mean, he barely graduated high school because he was out partying and doing that sort of thing. And I knew that if I got good grades and did what I was supposed to do in terms of academia, that I could make my mom proud and I could fool everybody as to what I was really doing, you know, and the life that I was really leading. So I stayed in school. I got my master's degree from NAU in 2008. Then I moved to Georgia and just continued on the same bullshit. I got my PhD in 2012, all while loaded. I mean, I went to school until they called me doctor and kicked me out, but I did it all loaded. It was all a farce. It was all ego-driven. I wanted to be something. I wanted to be someone, and I was Dr. Ramos. And that was proving to the world that I was worthy, that I was good enough, that I was, you know, to be accepted, or that I was a force to be reckoned with. It was all ego-driven. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with that. It was just sheer determination to make something of myself. And so that's what I did. But the entire time I was getting loaded. And the entire time I was incurring, you know, I was having run-ins with the law. And so it was just, they were getting more costly and more costly and more costly. I was a professor for 6 years until I burnt all those bridges down too. I mean, it's pretty hard to teach chemistry courses when you're doing meth or smoking trays in the lab next door. I mean, it truly is, you know? I was a horrible professor, but I was Dr. Ramos and you couldn't touch me. I mean, there was nothing, I was the greatest thing there was, and it was all ego-driven. And it was based out of fear, you know? I think it was based out of fear of, again, not being good enough, not being somebody, not being accepted, all of that stuff. It was just all driven by fear. Like I said, it was a bunch of smoke and mirrors. I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't being true to anybody. I was just living a farce. And that's how I spent a lot of years. Finally, the law caught up with me and I caught some charges. And spent 4 months in Coconino County Jail. And the jail itself, I mean, I wasn't so bad that I had to go to rehab out on the streets. Like, I was so bad that they sent me to rehab in jail. So I completed what was called an Exodus program. I did 3 months and completed basically a jail rehab. And I got out and I did this deal. There was a gentleman named Benito that used to come in. Curtis knows him, my wife knows him. I mean, he's a great guy. He's my first sponsor ever, but he used to bring jails into the meeting. And so I asked him one day if he'd be my sponsor, and he said, yeah. And so I got out, and I really wanted to stay in Flagstaff because that's where I was at the time. And so the only way I could stay there really was to go to a sober living house. So I went to the Foundation House. Curtis, you're a graduate of the Foundation House. It's part of your story, huh? Yeah, it's helped a lot of people. So I went there and I stayed there for 9 months, and I did this deal. I met my wife in the rooms. I don't know if I recommend that, you know? She definitely 13-step me, but no, it works for us. she became pregnant, and we lost that baby. She had a miscarriage at 20 weeks, and that was probably one of the most emotionally devastating things that has ever occurred in my life. But I stayed sober through it. It wasn't until the year anniversary of that happening or thereabouts that I went back out. I mean, and it was just getting lax in my program that I think did that, not trusting in God, not going to a whole lot of meetings, not really working with a sponsor. It was just me taking my will back. And so that spiraled into about a year and a half of just relapse. I'd get a couple months, and I'd relapse, and I'd get a couple months, and then I'd relapse. And I've done all the dirtbag things that you could do, especially to another human being. I've lied, I've cheated, I've stole, I've done all of those things. And one night I was getting loaded, and she got me, and we had a fight, and I grabbed her. I did. And that cost me a year in the penitentiary. I used to come to this meeting regularly. My absence may have been noted by some of you, but I went in January 13th of 2022, and I got out November 1st, so I did 10 months on a year. And that was a very rude awakening. I mean, I was now in the big boy leagues, you know what I'm saying? I had done stints in county jail and stuff like that, but I'd never been to the penitentiary until that day. And I did. I went to the joint, and the funny thing is I got sober before then. I was in the joint. I stayed sober. I took meetings I was there, so I didn't take them in. I was already in. I wasn't going anywhere, that's for damn sure. But I chaired meetings while I was there, and I stayed sober the entire time I was there. And what's funny is all the people that I was getting loaded with were nowhere to be found. You know what I'm saying? All those people, they're still nowhere to be found. They don't even know that I was probably in there. There's 5 people that I kept in contact with. My wife, my mother, which I feel are obligated to, and then the other one was Mike Bennett, Curtis, and Justin. Who's one of us. He's got sober here, but he now lives in Houston, and he used to send my wife money every week. That's the kind of people that show up in these rooms. That's the kind of love that I felt. It was only from people in these rooms. And I have a beautiful life today. I work with my sponsor. I probably don't work as hard as I should. He could probably tell you that. There are things that I take very seriously. Like Mike said, I have a morning routine. I get up and read 86 through 88 every morning, without fail. You can ask my wife. When she interrupts me, I get pissed. That's my time. That's my time. And I pray to a higher power, and I reflect on the life I have today, And I meet with my sponsor once a week, and I have a beautiful, beautiful life today. I'm no longer using any of my degrees. I swing a hammer. I do contracting work, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm surrounded by people that love me for me. I truly am. I feel like I've found a place where I'm accepted for me, where I'm loved for me, and that I could give that back. I have so much fun. It does take a lot of work. You do have to get a sponsor. You do have to work the steps. You do go to meetings. I have a service commitment here. All I do is put up those books, but I put them up every week. And I do. I have a beautiful, beautiful life today. Me and my wife have a very healthy relationship, or much more healthy than it was. I'm kind, I'm respectful, I'm integral. I get to show up. I get to show up as an employable person. I get to show up for my family. I get to show up for my wife. I wouldn't change what I have today for anything, and I wouldn't give it up for anything. And it starts with your sobriety. It really does. It truly does. All that shit will go away in a blink of an eye. I burnt my life down countless times. The money, the cars, the houses, the girls, whatever, they all go away the minute my sobriety does. I've been grateful enough or thankful enough to have a wife that stuck with me through these things. I have a sponsor who truly cares about me and who does suggest things, even though I don't always follow them, who gives me guidance, who gives me a way to live. You know, let me tell you this quick story. I asked Mike Bennett, I told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to ask Mike Bennett to sponsor me. And she looked at me and said, are you fucking crazy? Because I used to not be able to stand this guy. And it was because he was so happy. And he was always in your face, hi, I'm Mike Bennett. Yeah, we all know who you are. You're Mike Bennett, you know? But he has what I want. He's got 31 years. He's got a loving relationship with his wife. You know, he's been a strong man to his children, to his family, to the community. Those are the things I want. I don't want the money, I don't want the house, I don't want the cars. You know, I mean, that sort of thing comes and goes. I want true happiness, and I found that in these rooms. And I found that through relationships that I've forged with the men in these rooms. And I owe it all to here. The life I lead today, I owe it all to AA. So with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Curtis, I'd like you to invite more people I sponsor to speak, please. It's funny, you know, if this was like a circus, you have like 3 stages. You have a barker who's like your first speaker, you know, he kind of brings everybody in and gets everybody ready, and then you have this closer who's actually your speaker, and Kyler was thinking he was like going to be the closer at the end of this thing, but the truth is the last speaker is like the blow-off guy. That's the guy to get the circus empty so they can clean it and bring in a new crowd to make more money. So please help me welcome our third speaker and our blow-off man, Kyler.
Oh, that was awesome. Hey guys, my name's Kyler. I'm an alcoholic. Curtis, thank you for asking me to speak. I'm glad it's only 15 minutes, not 45, so I have to cut it early at 30. Golly, I love this. So, born in California, moved here when I was 9. Totally normal family. Like if I heard this from another gentleman, and man, it rang true. Is like if love was the cure for alcoholism, like I would have gotten it, right? I was extremely blessed to have a wonderful family. Annoying as fuck little sister, but I love her with all my heart, you know, just terrorizing each other, and loving mother and father. And, you know, school was very normal. I thought it was normal. I thought that how do I put this? Like, I wanted to be friends with everybody. Like, I didn't want anyone to not like me. That was one of my biggest worries, is that someone wouldn't like me. So I did whatever I could to fit in with every clique. You know, I was that kid that was able to hang out with the jocks, or, you know, but really my favorite people to hang out with were the nerds, because I'm a total nerd. But, and that served me very well. I had a lot of friends, but really throughout that process, like, I didn't really know who I was, right? That's a very typical story. I feel like I hear that all the time, but that's true for me. And it's funny, like, looking back, I can see a lot of alcoholic tendencies as a child. One of the biggest ones was, like, always being in trouble. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's interesting to me. It might be pointless, but, like, I could not do my homework. Like, no matter how badly I wanted to do my homework, no matter how much trouble I got in for not doing it, and being like, please, like, I remember crying, like, praying to God, like, let me just do my homework. Like, what a silly thing, right? Like, it's so dumb. Like, just do it. But I, like, couldn't. I don't know why. Like, I'd always lie and be like, no, my teacher didn't give me any homework. And I'd get in trouble for failing grades. And later on, I learned how to flirt with the nerdy girls and have them do my homework. But, like, master manipulator. But that kind of behavior ended up following me into my life until, like, I was ready to end it with drugs and alcohol. I am an alcoholic. My story does involve narcotics, but through and through, like, I'm an alcoholic. My first drink was probably actually, I was a pretty late bloomer. Probably wasn't until I was like 16 years old. And I'd never really had alcohol before until my buddy bought, like, what was it? I think we did like Edward 40 Hands or something like that with OE. And I got sloshed, like that kind of when you're on a boat Like, I had never experienced anything like it, and I thought it was great. I ate like 5 things of Top Ramen, puked it all up, and like, it was awesome. Like, that was like, we had so much fun. And from that moment on, like, I knew that that was my goal in life, to have fun. Like, that's all I really cared about. Everything else was kind of just like the things that you had to do in order to like be alive, like go to school, whatever, listen to your parents, whatever. Like, I just wanted to have fun. And it's funny, even though that was like my goal now in life, I still could like manage my drinking. It was odd. It wasn't like that, like, oh, I've had a drink, like now I cannot stop. That's not my story. Like, I was able to get out of plenty of sticky situation, like as a teenager, because I would only have like a couple of beers. Like, I just wanted to be around the fun. I don't know why. Like, I was able to manage my drinking, but I was, and I always got out of trouble. No matter what party I was at, no matter who I was hanging out with, like I was always the one to get out, to the point where like when I was hanging, like later on, I was getting into some heavy stuff. Like, I really thought I was a cop because I was always the one that didn't get in trouble. And right, that was, at the time I was like, sick, dude, like I never got in trouble. But really that was my downfall, because it was never bad enough, right? It never got bad enough for me to have to rethink what I was doing. God, like not just thinking about it now, it's like, what a curse, because it just like slowly progressed to where like I didn't see it. Like, it was all situation normal my whole life. You know, and after high school, I was in high school I was in the Future Soldier program, blah blah blah. Got kicked out for a DUI. Got a DUI for smoking marijuana like 2-3 weeks before my leave date. Swore in and everything, and my life was over. Like, something in me broke, because like I had my whole life set up, and I was going to be making more money than my father, and like by the age of 19 I had it made. And then after that, when I got that DUI, like I just didn't care. And then I was like trying to have, like, the only way that I felt normal was to be drunk, you know, or high. Like, that was the only thing that mattered to me. You know, started getting into some heavier stuff, accelerants, and that ruled my life for like 3 years, probably until I was like 22, 23. You know, and eventually, like, and everything that goes along with that, and I can't remember. At some point, my family had just had enough. Oh, I think it was the night, like, I was exorcising a demon out of my ex-girlfriend, and like I called my mom. I was like, dude, I can't do this. I need your help. And she's like, all right, like, that's enough. You're going to get sober. So she sent me to treatment, and it was great. Like, I felt like I could breathe again. I don't know what I was missing. Like, I knew this was my home. I just thought that the drugs were the problem. I didn't realize that it was me, that I am the one that has the spiritual normality. And so I thought that if I could just like hang around and do like just enough AA or NA or whatever, like I would be good. But I was wrong, you know. And then I started really drinking, because I was like, drugs are my problem. Like, if I drink, I'm fine, you know. And golly, was I wrong. You know, that's when it got really bad. I just couldn't live. Like, that's like every day, like showing up to work drunk. I don't know how I didn't lose my job. And that was my life until like I got into felony hit and run. I don't know how I didn't get a felony. I got off scot-free. I was able to get a hold of the guy who I hit and convince the cops that like we had figured it out, and the insurance handled everything, and I got off scot-free. But it scared the crap out of me, because that would have been my second DUI. I would have been like straight to prison. And so I started to take this seriously. And golly, I'm so glad that I did. Being able to make honest connections with people in these rooms and build back old relationships with my mother and my father, and my family in general, and being able to live like an amended life has been one of the most beautiful things I've ever been a part of. And it's cool because I get to deal with hard things today and have them be what improves me. Like I get to learn from my mistakes today and try to be better. And that is one of the coolest things I think of this program is just the self-improvement, like, and being able to help others. And like once I get good enough in my life and I'm not, the obsession to drink has been lifted, like then I can help my fellow suffering alcoholic. And that has been so much fun, being able to connect and work with others and just give it my all. Give something my all for once and have it like work for me and others. It's been so much fun to see like some guys that I work with do really well and start to go out and help others and just be a part of this. I think when it really comes down to it, I'm so grateful. I never understood why old timers were like, I'm grateful to be an alcoholic. I was like, why? Like, why? I don't want to deal with this. Like, I tried to kill myself. Like, why would I be grateful for this? And it's like, if I wouldn't have gone through everything that I went through, all that pain, that turmoil, like, I wouldn't get to be right here. And right here is awesome. Like, it's one of the coolest things. Beyond blessed. And thank you guys for letting me be a part of your sobriety. Thank you for being a part of mine.